history can feel like a game of telephone sometimes.
I see what you mean.
Like, the story gets passed around and twisted with each retelling.
Yeah, for sure.
And I feel like that's what happened with the Xiongnu, you know?
They really haven't gotten their fair shake, have they?
Exactly.
Often just relegated to those shadowy corners of history.
Right, depicted as like, I don't know.
Barbarians.
Yeah, barbarians at the edge of empires like Rome.
Yeah.
But the reality is, they were empire builders.
In their own right. Masters of it.
Totally.
Yeah.
Which is why we're doing this deep dive into this book.
Xiongnu, the world's first nomadic empire.
A good one.
Yeah, it's fascinating. We're ditching the old textbook narratives and really trying to understand how they built and wielded power.
And get this, their empire, it wasn't built on sprawling cities.
Really?
Or conquering huge chunks of territory like we imagine with, well, empires.
So how did they do it?
Our source calls it a state of mobilities. State of mobilities. Okay, that sounds almost futuristic. Not what I picture when I hear ancient nomads.
Right.
So paint us a picture. What did their empire actually look like? How did it actually function?
Okay, imagine like a constantly shifting chessboard, yeah.
Okay.
But this chessboard stretches from the Korean peninsula all the way to the borders of the Roman world.
Wow. That's huge.
That's the scale we're talking about here. And instead of fixed borders, they're all about strategic movement. That is their power.
So their people, their livestock, all their stuff, those were the chess pieces.
Exactly. And they knew how to use them. They were masters of mobility, leveraging it to their advantage.
So they weren't just reacting to the step, they were shaping it.
Totally. They weren't just surviving, they were shaping the political and economic landscape around them.
Wow. It's like they flipped the script on traditional empires.
Yeah.
Instead of just expanding outwards from one spot, they were this constant force, constantly adapting to maintain control.
And this is where that whole uncivilized nomad thing falls apart. They were highly structured.
Really?
Oh, yeah. This book details how they approach something like resource management.
Okay, like how so?
They understood that steppe ecosystem. They moved their herds strategically for sustainable grazing. They were not just wandering around out there.
Huh. So there was a method to the movement.
Oh, absolutely. Calculated mobility.
Interesting.
They knew when to negotiate grazing rights, when to make alliances for resources, and when to fight to protect their interests.
A strategic dance between diplomacy and, well, let's be honest, military power. Our source did mention their cavalry was pretty intense.
Oh yeah, they were renowned for their equestrian skills.
Really?
Incredible in warfare.
Right. You have to be to survive out there.
Right. But also, think about it, for controlling trade routes,
Oh, that's a good point.
which crisscross their territory.
Yeah.
Control over those trade routes equals access to resources, luxury goods,
Makes sense.
from way beyond the steppe.
Right. That makes sense. Fueling the empire.
Exactly.
Okay, I'm starting to understand how the empire worked. But how they keep it all together?
What do you mean?
Well, we're talking about massive distances, diverse people. All without things like extensive writing, right?
Right.
So how did they do it?
Well, that's where it gets really interesting. They used a decimal system.
A decimal system.
Yeah, for administration.
Interesting.
Leaders responsible for groups of 10, then hundreds, then thousands, like a pyramid.
Oh, a hierarchy.
Yeah,
Interesting.
mirroring their mobile lifestyle.
So streamlined, adaptable, like a mobile command structure almost.
Exactly. And to handle things like accounting, ownership, they use tamgas.
Tamgas, what
With
about it?
unique symbols, like a branding system almost.
Like cattle brands or something.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Each clan, each family group had its own tamga to mark their livestock, goods, even people.
Wow. So you'd see these symbols everywhere.
Everywhere. Carved on saddles, stamped on pottery, woven into textiles.
Yeah.
It's visual. It's reminders of Xiongnu identity and authority everywhere.
It's like woven into the fabric of their lives.
Yeah.
Powerful. And it makes that barbarian label seem kind of ridiculous, doesn't it?
Oh,
They understood visual communication and branding
way back then.
centuries before billboards.
Exactly.
It's amazing. My mind is already blown, and we're just getting started.
Right. We've got a lot more to uncover.
Last time we were talking about tamgas. Right.
Yeah, like their own unique branding system. Fascinating, isn't it?
Totally. But a mobile empire, it can't run on, open steppe alone.
Right, they needed structure.
Yeah. Ways to solidify power. I mean, how do you keep things from falling apart?
It's a good question. And this empire of mobilities, it wasn't just about like physically moving around.
Right.
There were political strategies, cultural innovations, all designed to maintain control over these vast distances.
Our source mentions these marital alliances.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, the Xiongnu used them to build relationships. It sounds like some high-stakes dynastic chess game.
A little bit, yeah.
So tell me more about this. How did it work?
Okay, so say you're a Xiongnu leader. You want to, let's say, secure a trade route
Okay.
through a powerful neighbor's territory. Instead of just, sending in the troops, you offer your daughter's hand in marriage to their leader.
Whoa. A strategic alliance, but sealed with a wedding, not a war.
Exactly.
That's clever.
Yeah.
But I have to ask, were these love matches?
I mean, it's probably safe to assume that romance wasn't the primary motivator here.
Right.
These were strategic arrangements, no doubt about it.
Right.
Often negotiated at the highest levels of power. But it wasn't just about resources or safe passage. These marriages, they wove together this complex web of kinship ties.
Okay, so you're creating obligations, allegiances, almost like a family business.
Yeah,
But on a massive scale.
exactly. And it wasn't just the elites.
Really?
Oh yeah, this extended down through the levels of leadership, creating this social fabric of strategic bonds.
It's really interesting.
It's brilliant for a society that's constantly on the move, maintains unity, a shared identity.
The more we learn about this, the more that barbarian label just seems so off base.
Right.
They were playing the long game here, thinking generations ahead.
And they were masters of symbolism.
Oh yeah,
Our source really highlights this.
those belts
Oh,
and the ornaments
intricate.
with all those animal motifs, like they were creating their own mythology.
It's fascinating stuff.
What was the significance of it all?
Think of it like, I don't know, power dressing.
Xiongnu style.
Exactly. But more than just fashion, right? These were tangible expressions of power, authority, the animals they chose, like the panthers, falcons.
Predators.
Right. Strength, speed, power. Exactly what you'd want to project as the leader of, well,
A nomadic empire.
exactly.
Yeah, it makes sense.
And it wasn't just the elites.
Really?
Oh yeah, these symbols were everywhere. On saddles, woven into fabrics, even weapons. It was a shared visual language across this vast territory.
It's amazing that they could achieve that kind of unity without, well,
A standardized writing system.
right.
Exactly.
Wow. So it was like their rallying cry, "We are the Xiongnu." Just, visual.
Powerful.
So powerful. They understood the importance of branding. Even back then, it's just, wow.
And it gets even more interesting.
Really?
There's more. The Xiongnu didn't just project their own symbols, they incorporated elements from other cultures.
Oh, interesting. So it wasn't just about imposing their own identity, they were absorbing others.
Especially after conquering a new group, it was a way to assimilate them.
Wow. So instead of just erasing the conquered culture,
Yeah.
they blended it in.
Exactly. It's much more sophisticated than just brute force, right?
Yeah.
It created the sense of belonging within the Xiongnu world.
This is all just, I don't know, it's really impressive. The strategic alliances, the visual language, this whole approach to cultural integration. It sounds like a very politically adept society.
Mm.
But what about their economy? Did they have, like, coins, taxes, like other empires?
That's where this whole state of mobilities thing really comes into play again.
Okay, how so?
Their economy, it was tied to their mobility, to their control of resources.
So less about fixed borders, more about managing this network.
Yes,
Yeah.
a network of relationships and resources, with the Xiongnu's leadership at the center.
Okay, that's fascinating.
Yeah.
But how do you keep track of all of that? I mean, did they have spreadsheets, accountants?
Remember those tamgas we talked about?
Oh, right, the symbols.
Those weren't just for marking ownership, they were also crucial for accounting.
Really?
Yeah, for managing all those resources.
So these symbols, they were like, what? An early form of data visualization or something?
Exactly. Imagine a Xiongnu administrator. They're using these knotted cords, these tamgas, to track livestock, goods, even grazing rights.
So it's like their own infographic system,
They were incredibly innovative.
centuries before the printing press. I love it. It's brilliant.
And you know what's even more amazing?
What's that?
It wasn't just practical.
Right.
This system, it was tied into their entire social structure, even their beliefs.
It's amazing how much more there is to the Xiongnu than just that barbarian label,
Absolutely. They were incredibly sophisticated.
Masters of mobility, strategic alliances, that whole visual language,
Oh, yeah.
and an economic system designed for how they lived.
Perfectly adapted to their nomadic lifestyle.
Really impressive stuff. But eventually, even the Xiongnu, they faced a decline.
It's the way of empires, isn't it?
Right. Even the biggest, most powerful, there's like an expiration date. So what happened? What brought them down?
Well, it was a lot of things. Internal power struggles.
Yeah, makes sense. Succession battles, those can get nasty.
Always a threat.
Yeah,
And then you have pressure from their neighbors, like the Han Dynasty.
those guys always seem to cause trouble for the Xiongnu, like a constant thorn in their side.
The Han were definitely a powerful force. But it wasn't just about fighting. You know, the Xiongnu, they had to balance diplomacy, trade, even cultural exchange.
It's like walking a tightrope. And I'm guessing it got harder to maintain that balance over time.
Exactly.
So more than just military might, it was a battle of smarts, resources, everything. But here's what's interesting to me. Even when their power was declining,
yeah.
they didn't just disappear, you know?
Right.
The book mentions groups like the Southern Xiongnu.
Interesting case.
They were technically under Han control,
Right.
but they kept a lot of their Xiongnu traditions, even their titles. It's like their legacy, it became part of the region itself.
Exactly. That's what I love about studying history. You see these cultural threads woven through time. The Xiongnu, they left their mark.
Even when they were absorbed by other empires.
Especially then, in a way. They adapted, blended in, but without losing their core identity.
It speaks to their resilience, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Adaptability.
For sure.
And it makes me think about how they're viewed today, particularly in Mongolia. They're the Hanu there.
Oh, yeah.
And it's not just a name in a history book.
No.
It's alive. Our source talks about businesses named Hanu, even rock bands.
I love that. It shows you the power of legacy.
Right. They went from these barbarians at the edge of the map to a source of pride. Inspiration, even.
It reminds us that history isn't static, you know.
How so?
What we know about the Xiongnu, it's always evolving. New discoveries, new interpretations.
That's so true. It's exciting.
Totally. And it challenges us to rethink how we see the past.
Exactly. The Xiongnu, they were innovators. They mastered a new kind of empire.
An empire of mobilities.
Exactly. And their story, it really makes us reconsider those old assumptions about power, civilization, what it means to build an empire.
It's a good lesson for all of us, isn't it?
Totally. So to wrap this up, I guess what we're really saying is, don't accept those simple narratives at face value.
Dig deeper.
Yeah. Question those assumptions. The most amazing stories, they're often the ones just waiting to be rediscovered.
Couldn't have said it better myself.
And that's a wrap on our Xiongnu deep dive. We'll be back next time with another fascinating slice of history.
See you then.